Hello there, we're Annie and Dan Eastman, Harvest Home, and we are happy to be part of Welcoming Week. It's a time when we can all be reminded to unite rather than divide as people, and to welcome all to our community as we create home together. We're going to share for the next little while a few folk tales from different cultures and some tunes. And we want you to just sit back and enjoy. And if you know the song, sing along with us wherever you are. All right, we're going to start with an old Persian tale, very short and sweet, about a people that were seeking asylum elsewhere, leaving their country to save themselves from harm and to still enjoy their freedoms. They found their way on the west coast of India, and that state at the time was ruled by a king. Now the king was a good king, he was kind, but his land was full already. He knew he couldn't speak to these new people, and they couldn't speak to him because they didn't share the same language. So he thought of a way that they would understand through symbolism. And he had a glass of milk poured and brought out to them on the shore, and they knew right away that full glass of milk meant that the land was full. But they had nowhere else to go, and they also had a message to him about how hardworking and what good values they had as a people, and they knew that if they could just convince him that their being there would enrich the culture, and they had much to contribute, that he would let them in. So they took that glass of milk and they poured some sugar in it and made sure that was known to the person who brought it out, and took it back to the king. And he found that so touching that he accepted them in. He gave them gifts, helped them settle, and they contributed to the community. They made the milk even sweeter. That's what we should all be doing. We now want to share with you a song that you may all know, This Land Is Your Land. So let's have a go at that. We're going to change instruments. Dan's going to put the guitar down and pull out the banjo. Love that banjo. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of your diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land
rolling, and the dust clouds rolling, as the fog was lifting, a voice was shouting, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
All right, we have a folktale now from Japan, and Dan's going to share that one.
O mukashi, mukashi. Mukashi is a Japanese word. It means long, long ago. And long, long ago in Japan, there was a little fishing village that was by the seashore, and the villagers made their living going out and gathering the produce from the sea. But they also lived on a lot of rice. Behind the village, there were of 400 people. There was a large hill which had terraced steeps with rice paddies, and at the top lived the headman, the villager. He was an old man, and they lovingly called him grandfather, Oji-san. Oji-san in Japanese. And his grandson lived there too. He was prosperous, and he had gathered the fruits of many a harvest, along with fish and vegetables and others, and stored them away in case hard times might come. But everything was prosperous. They had had a good year. It was the fall now, and instead of there being green rice paddies with lots of water, they had let all the water out. They drained them, and the rice in its stalks, in the sheaves, was hung out on racks, drying in the fields. Every terrace had its own set of sheaves. Well, down in the village, where the men and the women, the mothers, the fathers, the children, the boys, the girls, the babies, they were all living. It was about 5 o'clock, and Oji-san came out with his grandson, as he would often do in the early evening, just to enjoy the cool and the breeze coming off of the ocean. And he looked down in the village, and lights had started to come up in that time of the evening, and he heard lots of laughter and music as people were enjoying themselves after the day's labor. And he started to look out further, and he noticed the beach was different. The beach was much bigger. In fact, he could see the tide pools that normally were not visible from where he was. And as his gaze went up towards the horizon, he saw a large blue wall of water rising up. It was a tsunami. Tsunami, the Japanese word, meaning tidal wave. They're very rare, but they do happen often in Japan, maybe several times a century. He had never seen one in his life, but he knew exactly what that was, coming in rapidly to the village. There wasn't time to warn the villagers by running down there. He shouted, but he knew that that was in vain. Then he knew exactly what to do. He got his grandson and he said, "Get me a torch. Get one for you too." And the grandson came running with 2 torches. They put them in the fire and they came up blazing. And the grandfather said, "Do just what I do. Don't ask any questions. I'll tell you later." So they went out, and he started to touch the torch against the rice thatch, and the field burst into flame, and the flames ripped across that terrace. And then he touched the next one, as did his grandson, and they worked their way down the hill, terrace by terrace. Well, as they were doing so, they started to hear shouts from below, As the villagers looked up and they saw the flames silhouetted against the evening sky, they knew that those flames were on fire. And aghast, they started yelling and coming out of their homes. And the temple rang its emergency bell. Gong, gong, gong. The people rushed with brooms and buckets and blankets, anything they could to put out the fires. But as they arrived, they saw that the fields had all been burned and were just smoldering now. One man picked up the grandson and hauled him up to Oji-san's house at the top. And Oji-san was there, and he said, "I saw this boy light these on fire. Who's done this? Why would they burn up our grain? This is the year's harvest." Oji-san patiently said, "I lit the fires, and I told the boy to light the fires too." "Why, oh, why would you do that?" And he said, "Turn around." They looked around, and at this very moment, that wall of water fell down on the village. It was higher than any of the houses, and it burst them into splinters. And the villagers looked aghast as all their belongings, the splinters of their houses, everything was washed out to sea. And then another wave came and took whatever might have been left. And then a third wave came until there was calm on the sea. And all went to darkness, except for the smoldering fires that were seen in those fields and the fire at Oji-san's house. As they gathered around, he said, "This is why I lit those on fire. You would have never known of that tsunami coming. And it was the only way to get the message to you." Well, in amazement, they thought how they had lost everything, their food, their possessions. But all 400 of those people, from babies to grandparents, were there, alive and well. They bowed and they said, "Arigatou gozaimasu." "Arigatou gozaimasu," meaning thank you. "Arigatou gozaimasu, Oji-san." And they truly were grateful. And he let them stay on their land, on his land, while they rebuilt the village. And he fed them from the stores that he had of rice and fish and vegetables. And he helped them actually build a barrier wall to keep all further tsunamis, the grand tidal waves, from coming into the land. As we think about this story, we're reminded how some of us have more than others. The prosperous ones need to sometimes sacrifice to help those in need. And by doing this, we build not only sturdy homes, but sturdy communities and wonderful, kind nations. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Old Joe's calf had wandered over and gotten into his neighbor's field, and his neighbor claimed it as his own. "Well, it got in my field. I guess it's my calf now." And old Joe said, "No, it's mine, neighbor. It's got my brand on it." And they went back and forth, arguing and arguing, almost to the point of punching each other out. But then they both turned and walked back into their own doors and didn't speak for days and days. And old Joe began to feel uncomfortable about the whole situation. That just isn't right. We've been good neighbors for so long and made our home together here. Well, one Saturday morning, there was a knock at the door, and Joe opened it, and it was a young carpenter with his carpenter box at his feet. And he said, "Sir, I'm a traveling carpenter. Do you have any jobs I can do, things I can, projects you want me to work on and build for you?" And Joe thought for a minute, and he said, "Yes, you're darn tootin'. I want you to build a fence, because look out there, my neighbor," and I'm so mad at him, He last week took his tractor up to the hill above our houses, and he dug a ditch right through our property line, and now there's a creek running between us. Oh, that makes me so mad. I want you to build me a fence taller than I am, so I don't have to look at his place or the creek or see him anymore. He said, there's plenty of lumber in the barn, and I see you've got your tools, and I've got to drive into the village today, but you can get started on the project right now. Oh, I'll just show that neighbor. Who does he think he is? Well, the carpenter started right away, and he worked straight through. He didn't even take a break for lunch. And by the time Joe got home, late at the end of that day, the carpenter was done. Only he hadn't built a fence. He had built a beautiful bridge across the creek. It even had a handrail. And just as he was admiring that bridge and wondering, what the heck, I told him a fence, his neighbor comes walking across the bridge with his hand held up high to shake hands. And he thanked Joe for building the bridge, how beautiful it was and how petty it was that they had argued over a silly calf that neither one of them needed. Well, they were friends once again, and they both decided that they could use the young carpenter's skills for a few more days if he wanted to stick around, but he said, no, I have a few more bridges to build. And he took off down the road whistling happily. And there's the folktale of the two old men who argued over a calf. Now we're going to do a song called Simple Gifts. It's an old Shaker tune. And if you know it, sing along wherever you are.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we are in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
Tis a gift to be gentle, tis a gift to be fair, tis a gift to wake and breathe the morning air, and every day to walk in the paths that we choose. Tis a gift we pray that we may never lose.
When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Tis a gift to be loving, tis a gift best of all.
like the quiet rain, it blesses where it falls. And if we have this gift, we will truly believe that it's better to give than it is to receive. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning, we come round right.
Now here's a folk tale from Ireland. A young couple lived in County Mayo, and they were just beginning life together, although they had been married a few short years, hoping to have a child. They also had the man's parents living with them because they were getting old and feeble. In fact, his mother had lost her sight for about 10 years now, so he was responsible for providing for the whole family. Well, things were tough in Ireland, and they got even tougher when the potato blight hit Ireland in the mid-1800s. And so he had to make a choice. It was their survival against doing something that was now illegal to provide for his family, and that was to sneak over the fence into the English landlord's land and shoot some game to provide for his family, and that's what he was going to do early the next morning. Well, he woke up early, took his hatchet, and climbed over the fence, being careful not to be seen, and he roamed the land all day long, looking for some game to shoot and take back home to his family. But it wasn't until evening when he finally cornered a deer. And as he got closer and raised his hatchet, he noticed, even in the shadows, that this deer was pure white. He had never seen a pure white deer before. And not only that, the deer spoke to him and said, "Wait, don't kill me. You have a choice, you know. I can grant you a wish, and that might be a better choice than being hung by the king and having your family starve. But on the other hand, you could have meat for a day or two and they wouldn't starve." Well, the young man decided he'd take the wish, and the deer said, "Go home and think about carefully what you want that wish to be, and I will be here when you come back tomorrow." So the young man went back home, back across the English landlord's property, snuck over the fence, and the first person he met was his father. He told his father about this chance meeting with a white deer, and his father said, "I know what you should wish for. Gold. We just need gold. All our problems would be solved." But when he told his mother about the chance meeting with the deer and the wish that would be granted, she said, "No, son, I haven't had my eyesight for 10 years. My eyesight is more important than gold." And when he spoke with his wife pleaded with him, "We are childless. Wouldn't a child be worth more than eyesight and gold anytime?" Now he had a dilemma. Which wish, or what wish, would he present to the deer the next day? Well, he struggled all night to sleep. He hardly caught a wink. But the next morning, he had figured out what he would wish for, what the one wish would be. And he left early again, climbed the fence into the English landlord's property, and he didn't have to travel far before he met the white deer again. And the deer said, "What will be your wish?" And the young man took a deep breath and he said, "All right, I wish for my mother to be able to see my wife rocking our child in a golden cradle as we're on our way to America." And the deer began to laugh. And he said, "That's quite a wish, but I guess that's one wish, so granted." That's the folktale from Ireland. And can't we all make all of our wishes come true if we're creative and think carefully? We can fulfill our dreams as well as help fulfill the wishes of others too. We are now going to share a song with you by Sarah Purtle, Colors of the Earth. Let's bring back the guitar. And if you think about it, if we look at the world through artists' eyes, not everything is just one color. Like if you look at a peach, you can also see shadows of yellow and purple, and maybe an eggplant might have hues of blue in it as well. That's what this song is a bit about, Colors of the Earth. Tell me the names of the colors of earth, the purple of eggplant, the purple of peach, the green and the black of the rocks on the beach, the sun on the mountains in the morning. Who can count all the colors of earth? Each color is different, each color is true. We are made of the colors of earth, and I love the colors that made you. When I look at the eyes of my friends, I can see topaz, I can see sky, the green and the gray of the sea rolling by, and the dazzling brown river in the morning. We are made of the colors of earth, each color is different, each color is true. We are made of the colors of earth, and I love the colors that made you. When I look at the hands of my friends, I can see chestnut, I can see corn, the color of wheat fields and a dappled brown fawn, and the rain-kissed black trees in the morning. We are made of the colors of earth, each color is different, each color is true. We are made of the colors of earth, and I love the colors that made you. And now another folktale. This is from the small country of Bhutan, which borders Tibet in Southeast Asia. And this occurred long ago when animals could talk. It so happened that in an ancient forest, an elephant, a monkey, and a rabbit, and a bird happened to all converge at the same time under the shade of a big, beautiful tree. And they were all enjoying being there. Then when all of a sudden the elephant said, I wonder who this tree belongs to. I think it belongs to me, because I saw it first. Ha ha! Ah, the monkey started laughing. He said, Elephant, do you see any fruit on this tree? Well, no. Well, then, you didn't see it first. I've been eating the fruit off this tree for years, so I think it belongs to me. It's my tree. Well, the little rabbit had to have his say, and he came hopping in and he said, excuse me, it's really my tree, because I've been eating the leaves off the tree since it was but a wee sapling, long before either of you two ever even came across this tree. And then the little bird came flying in and said, I made the tree. Yep. I spit the seed in the ground and watched the tree grow. So I was the first one. Well, the other animals had to agree that, yes, the bird knew the tree first. But they decided they could all share the tree. It could all be home to all of them. They were enjoying its shade. They were enjoying the peace of it. And if they cooperated, they could all enjoy the fruit. So the elephant would reach up to the highest point where no one else could reach to get the fruit. The monkey would climb up into the branches and drop the fruit down to the rabbit and the bird. And by doing so, they all cooperated. You often see the symbolism of the four harmonious friends in Indian culture and Buddhist culture, and wouldn't it be lovely if that vision was everywhere in the world? The harmonious friends. Now we're going to end with one more song. Sing along with us if you know it. All God's critters got a place in the choir. You can clap along and sing with us.
Critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Listen to the bass, it's the one on the bottom where the hummingbird hums. The hippopotamus moans and groans with a big to-do. The old cow just says, moo. The dogs and the cats, they take up the middle as the hummingbird hums. The cricket fiddles, the donkey brays, and the pony neighs, and the old coyote howls. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Listen to the top with the little birds singing, the melody with the high notes ringing. The hoot owl hollers over everything, and the old gray badger sighs. Singing in the nighttime, singing in the day. The little duck quacks and he's on his way. The possum don't have much to say, and the porcupine sings to herself. All God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands and paws or anything they got now. It's a simple song, living sung everywhere by the ox and the fox and the grizzly bear, the grumpy alligator and the cockapug, the sly raccoon and the turtle dove. Everybody here is a part of the plan. We all get to play in the great critter band, from the eagle in the sky to the whale in the sea. It's one great symphony. Oh, all God's critters got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, their paws, or anything they got now.
We're so happy to have spent this time with you and be part of Welcoming Week. We've hoped you enjoyed the time. And let's all make this place we call home together.